there were some tests in there that contained literal lethal substances that could easily kill you, and those people threw those drugs away. So it's fair to say, and we said at the time, that based on those results, a death, if not a really severe hospital visit, was prevented by there. And is that not worth it? Is that not worth it? Even though it might upset the ideology of some people. Sydney developers have given for demolishing the childhood home of ACDC founders Angus and Malcolm Young.
This would have never happened if it were Liverpool and the Beatles. This would have never happened if it was Taylor Swift's childhood home. You know what I mean? Like, it just feels like there is always going to be some major disconnect in this country when it comes to the arts and the historical nature of this and the importance of that and the pavings that ACDC laid down for the next generation to walk across.
Gentlemen, this is Democracy Manifest.
Alrighty, well, howdy doody, Mr. Snow, for 2025.
G'day, Cam. How are you?
Good. You're sounding robotic for the start of the new year. What's happened?
We've made a pivot to AI, and rather than doing it ourselves, we spent the break training our particular AI off the many hours of radio and podcasting that Cam and I have produced. So instead of us actually doing any of the work, we just have the AI versions of ourselves do the same thing. It's foolproof.
It's a lot easier than actually doing it ourselves, we figure. So, we get a lot more time back to ourselves, and that's what it's going to be. No, we're back for 2025. I've actually quite been looking forward to it. Normally, and this isn't to throw any shade on when we're on the radio, but it always felt like, all right, we're taking a break over Chrissy, which we were doing, but there was always, I don't know, I always felt this little thing where the station are like, okay, well, you got to fuel your program while you're off. So it never fully felt like a break. It always felt like there was this obligation to get back earlier than perhaps we'd like. But this year, now that we're podcasting, we make our own schedule. We can do what we want. So we've taken, some would say, an extended leave. I like to say we took a solicitor's Christmas break, who are back on the 20th of January, some of them. So,
but you'll know that our work started at least several days before you're listening to this. So, if you're out there shaking your fist, going, "Those lazy bastards," wind the clock back 3 to 4 days, and we were at least thinking about this stuff. So, don't be too hard on us, please.
Yeah, we've been planning. We'll put it that way. We've been doing behind the scenes work that, you just don't appreciate right now. But in like 2 months' time, you'll be like, yes, these guys were hard at work. I can see that now. How was your Chrissy? How was your New Year? Quick recap before we get into the news.
That was it. That burp happened organically, but it was timed beautifully to just respond to that. No, you know what, actually? I reckon I ate the least this Christmas. Like usually, I'm stuffed full. I could have rolled down a hill and bounced off a concrete wall, But this time, I don't know. I feel like I just did. Like, I ate well, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't like I felt like I was going to die type thing. So I don't know what to make of that. But otherwise, it was very nice. A very nice Christmas. It was actually the first time in a nearly 7-year relationship that my partner and I were able to spend Christmas together, which is pretty wow.
Yeah, that's bonkers.
Yeah, so that was really...
In 7 years.
Really nice to be able to do that. And then it was the same old kind of, action-packed. It's you knock off work late, and then it's Christmas shopping, and then it's Christmas Eve, and then it's Christmas, and then it's Boxing Day, and then it's New Year's, and then you get back, and then it was Jade's birthday on the 4th, and then it was our housemate's birthday on the 5th, and then I went back to work on the 6th, and I was like, Jesus. But I had 4 days off. At the end of, I went back for 3 days and then had 4 days off, went back. And those 4 days, I think I actually, replenished my calmness, my requirements for doing nothing. I satisfied those. So great time had, and those 4 days at the end made it perfect. If I didn't have them, I'd be coming at you going, you know what? I don't feel very well rested, but I had a good time. Now I can say I feel well rested and I had a good time.
No, that's lovely. I also had a quite nice, well-rested Christmas break. A couple of years ago, I remember just Boxing Day, just sitting on the couch all day watching the Boxing Day test. Not because I was super engaged in the Boxing Day test, but because I was too exhausted to physically move and do anything else. So that was how I spent my Boxing Day a couple of years ago. This year, a bit more refreshed, a bit more, I guess, energy around. And, I saw you down at the Mariners on the 28th against Auckland for one of another driving.
Yeah, that was...
Yeah, but it was nice to see you over the Christmas break.
Likewise. Shame about the circumstances.
I know, because it felt weird not speaking to you every week or two, doing these podcasts. So it is nice that we are back, and something fun happened. So this was our first Christmas morning in our home, just the two of us. We had Ella's mum and her partner around last year. So this year was our first Christmas in our house, just the two of us. So Christmas morning was fun, doing the presents and whatnot. And we came to the realization we have quite similar tastes. And quite a few
took
presents.
You this long? Are you already married?
Well, okay, no, we knew that, but to the extent where a lot of presents overlapped.
Oh.
So stocking fillers, we both got each other sour worms. We both got, pods and M&Ms, the crispy ones because they're the best. That sort of stuff that crosses over and it feels like, yeah, okay, whatever. But on Christmas morning, we both saw under the tree, in her pile and in my pile, a present that had a very similar shape. We opened it at the exact same time, and I have it right on the desk next to me.
Ooh,
we both got each other the exact same office calendar from Typo.
That is really funny because that's so specific.
Exactly the same calendar.
So what do you do with the surplus calendar? Does one take it to work? Do you put it in a different room in the house? Do you put it? You just put it up next year and pretend it's 2026 version?
Well, I was gonna take mine to work, and I did take it to work, and then I was like, I don't have anywhere to hang it properly, so I brought it back home today, not for the show and tell, which was just I was like, oh, how funny that I remembered it, but yeah, I think I'll hang it up in here somewhere. So, and then the other one will be in the kitchen or something like that. So, but we just were in absolute hysterics, discovering that we got each other the exact same calendar from the same shop independently.
Beautiful. And not that I think there were any doubts to your marriage, but if you were to, should we be married? Hang on, this is a rubber stamp on the marriage. No, we bought each other the exact same calendar for Christmas. You guys are peas in a pod, meant to be.
I'll take that. But yeah, it's, nice to be back now. I've actually, quite been looking forward to sitting down and doing another recording and chewing the fat with you because, it's nice. I've been, we talked about going back to work, very low motivation going back to work. I'll be honest. I really enjoyed the Christmas break. So very low motivation starting up the year again at work, but I've actually been really looking forward to doing this. So make of that what you will.
The things that fill our cup, but I will say I love you too. But no, it is
nice reading between the lines.
It's lovely to be back, and we you know what, we're going to be bringing you stories that aren't even that new for this music news, but they're new for us. They're going to be new to you too, hopefully. New to us,
Yeah, look,
new to you listening to them from us is what I'm trying to say, and we are excited to bring them to you. And we do already have many things lined up for the year to come. So we'll be sharing those with you, maybe in this podcast, maybe in the next ones, maybe via our socials. But it's great to have you back too. So thank you for listening to us into 2025 too, and we'll kick off in typical homebrewed fashion for the long-time fans with the story about pill testing.
Yeah, this is a a topic I don't think we've discussed it really as a music news topic on the podcast, but certainly got a plenty of discussion on the airwaves at Coast FM when we had our radio show, because I guess it was a hot button topic then, and there hasn't really been many new developments since we've started doing the podcast. But because all the research was done, a lot of the evidence, fact finding had been done, and then the government were like, "No, let's do some more," which is like, hitting your head against the wall. Like, what more evidence do you need to find that you haven't already discovered? But there is an update to this now that in 2025, New South Wales are going to trial it, allow it. What's the correct terminology for what's happening?
So historically, the most I suppose they're not the most resistant state to pill testing, but I don't think as much has been asked of the WA government or other governments. New South Wales has just been like a prick when it comes to this over the years. And it's fair to say that we've probably reached a point where someone has died because this hasn't happened, which is horrible, absolutely horrible. But if we wind back the clock, we literally have been speaking about this in relation to New South Wales for as long as I can remember, whether it was on the radio or otherwise. But if we wind back the clock, we had some really terrible summer music festival seasons that saw a lot of deaths happen. I believe it was in 2019, it was Alex Ross King from the Central Coast who died at a festival in Sydney as a result of a likely avoidable overdose had something like this been in place. And her mother has since gone on to be, quite a loud and important voice in getting this over the line in New South Wales. But what was so frustrating back then was that I think it was around the time we had Gladys Berejiklian in power. And despite the evidence overwhelmingly pointing to this, and this is like climate change. It's not a matter of opinion. There is truth and there is just what you think. And the truth on this has always been that it saves lives, that it reduces harm. And the alternative to that, and what we saw from Gladys Berejiklian in face of that evidence, or in spite of that evidence, I should say, back in 2019, was, well, no, we're just not going to do that because I don't believe in it personally. That continued into a coronial inquest and a state inquiry, state government inquiry. Now, the coroner came back recommending pill testing. The inquiry came back recommending pill testing and the decriminalisation of all drugs. Of course, none of those were adopted, despite all of that resources and effort putting into figuring out what the best thing to do is. We then had Dominic Perrottet as leader, who responded to subsequent deaths down the track with just don't do drugs, which, no one had ever heard before. So that was very good and useful.
He revolutionised that approach to drugs and pill testing. I thought, mate, Perrottet's onto something here. I don't know where he pulled this idea from, but, mate, make him Prime Minister, not Premier.
Yeah. I hadn't thought of that. But we got predictably nowhere with that, and it looked the same with the Minns Labor government when there was an opportunity to again maybe signal that we'd look at that. The Minns Labor government instead decided to plan and hold a two-part drug summit, which we I'm sure there's going to be good stuff, and there has been good stuff already said. We've had the first part of that summit go down, and I'm not saying it's not useful, but in terms of requiring evidence, we had a coronial inquest, we had a state inquiry, we had evidence from other states, the ACT, Queensland, Victoria, I think, as well. We had evidence from all around the world. We did not need more evidence, particularly when it comes to pill testing, but harm reduction generally, we're not really in need of more evidence. But anyway, to digress, the first part of that drug summit happened, and now we're getting a trial, a 12-month trial in New South Wales at music festivals in 2025. Now, this was announced back last year in towards the end of December. We'd knocked off for the year, as had a lot of other people and things. So if you hadn't heard much about it, that's why. We hope you haven't. If you're all over it, well, listen to our takes because you might hear something slightly different. But yeah, it was announced towards the end of December. And finally, we have a 12-month trial of pill testing in New South Wales. What happens after that, we don't know, but it's almost guaranteed that the evidence post-trial will be, oh, hey, it actually helped and stuff.
Well, that's the thing, right? You think 12 months trial, whatever the outcome of the trial is, will likely shape the way that they look about this moving into next year, 2026. It feel based on all the evidence that we've seen, and they just can't. It feels like there can't be an outcome that isn't that the program does continue into next year, based on the likely findings are that it does reduce harm, it saves lives. The positives by far outweigh any potential negative, which, as you've touched on before, and I think your climate change comparison was perfect. It's ideological as opposed to fact-based. You go, I just have a moral objection to the thought that climate change exists. It's all a hoax, whatever. And it's the same, I think, with pill testing. It's just a moral objection to taking drugs that makes people think, well, no, it should be banned, when all the research shows that, yeah, it saves lives, it significantly reduces the potential harm. And in actual fact, once people learn what's actually in what they were going to take, people throw it in the bin because they go, oh, I don't want that in my body. Like, people, they're not dumb. People, like, the toxic chemicals like paint come up in some of these. I remember when we spoke about the trial at Groove in the Moo in Canberra, when we were on the radio, there was paint and all these toxic chemicals that came up, and people just thought, oh, no, I don't want that. So they threw it out. So it's actually, you're not just helping people find out what they're putting in their bodies. It's actually acting as a deterrent as well, which, for the people who have a moral objection to it, that's positive. It's not encouraging people, take all the pills you want because, we've got pill testing. They're not actually encouraging you to take it. They're just helping you make informed decisions.
Exactly. It's not Otto, the bus driver from The Simpsons, standing out the front of a tent saying, hey, dude, you want to come test how good your shit is? It's health professionals, literal doctors, people with science backgrounds who have a setup at a festival. You go in there, you say, hey, I've bought these. I just want to make sure they're safe. They'll sit down with you. Before they even test it, they'll be like, look, I don't want you to take this. You shouldn't take this regardless of what's in it. They'll tell you why. So they'll immediately be kind of trying to tell you why it's probably not a good idea to take it. If you want to continue, you get it tested. They come back, they tell you exactly what's in it. And then you make a decision as to what you want to do based on that finding. Now, the police also have an amnesty agreement for, the surrounding area at that festival. So you're not going to walk in with something in your pocket, get it tested, all good, you walk out and then get arrested or searched. They've clearly said that, they're interested in targeting those who are supplying. They're not interested in targeting those who are using personally in the context of a pill testing environment. But what it does mean, is that what's in your drugs, and you know what's going to happen. It also allows the people who are testing it, once they know, to give you advice based on what's in it. So even if it's pure and healthy, they've got the ability then to say, hey, look, this is all good, but here's X, Y, Z reasons or things to do if you are choosing to take these, like hydration, food, staying with people, noticing for signs, et cetera, et cetera. All of those things that people need to know when they're doing these things, and allows them to do them more safely and prevent deaths. And we know that ACT tests that we reported on years ago, Groove in the Moo, with the ACT being the leader in this one, there were some tests in there that contained literal lethal substances that could easily kill you, and those people threw those drugs away. So it's fair to say, and we said at the time, that based on those results, a death, if not a really severe hospital visit, was prevented by there. And is that not worth it? Is that not worth it? Even though it might upset the ideology of some people. And I'm sure our listeners are probably a bit more sympathetic to the cause, but it is good to have your head wrapped around how this thing actually works, and again, why it is important. And it is really good that we are having it in New South Wales, because we have a lot of festivals in New South Wales. A lot of people go there, and of course, people take drugs into and at festivals, and no amount of don't take drugs or increased police presence is going to stop that.
Yeah, it would have been nicer to have pre-COVID because we had a lot more festivals prior to COVID, not just in the state, but across the country as well. But yeah, the point remains that, you know, because the flip side to this, and it's one of the, I guess, non-ideological arguments against it, is that, well, but who becomes liable then? If the pill is tested, they've said there's no dangerous substance in it, person takes the pill and they pass away as a result of a poisoning or an overdose or whatever the case is, can the people then, you know, the family of the person who passed away, go to the government and say, you legalized pill testing, the pill testing tent said it was all safe, clearly it wasn't because they passed away? Where's the liability? And I think under the Berejiklian government and Perrottet as well, and Minns up until now, they've been afraid of litigation and people coming at the government saying you said it was okay when it actually wasn't. So I actually think that's one of the bigger reasons why we haven't seen a trial in the state until now. It wasn't because of a lack of evidence, because as we've already touched on in this episode, and we have for the last 7 years, there has been so much evidence relating to it to say that it is good. But I think, yeah, you've got your moral objections, and then you also have potential legal implications as to why. But as you said, if you save one life, like that is like if we're doing a trolley problem type situation where you pull this lever and you can save a life, but you legalize pill testing, surely like that's an easy solution, right?
Pull the damn lever. But yeah, I understand the litigation.
Pull the lever, Kronk.
Pull the lever, Kronk. Wrong lever!
Huh?
Why do we even have that lever?
The litigation side of it is.
Have you seen The Emperor's New
concern.
Groove?
Yes, years ago.
Eamonn,
Come on, man.
Eamonn. It is a Disney classic.
I know, I have seen it, but it's been a long time. It's been a long time, and there's only a few movies really in my life where there's that instinctive line that pops into my head from it. I don't know.
I'm the same.
It's like
The Emperor's New Groove is one of those movies for me.
But like, if you want to talk Too Fast, Too Furious, man, I've got lines for days. I could recite.
Yeah, see, that's not really in my wheelhouse.
Well, maybe we both have some homework. Emperor's New Groove, Too Fast, Too Furious.
Actually, I tell you what, if you're listening to this on Spotify right now, leave a comment in the comments below. Too Fast, Too Furious or The Emperor's New Groove? What's your preferred movie?
It's funny because I've watched, we used to watch Too Fast, Too Furious. Like my sister and I, to an unhealthy extent when we were younger. I don't even know why, but we did. And then I've gone and watched it as an adult, and I was like, this movie is kind of shit. Like in terms of, some of the acting and how it's very implausible and a bit silly. Maybe not shit, silly. It's a bit more silly than I remembered it being to watch as an adult. I feel like The Emperor's New Groove would be more...
it holds up.
Yeah, wholesome and what is that word I can't think of when you are reminiscent of the past and it reminds you of stuff.
Nostalgia.
That's it. Nostalgic. Yeah, so I can understand. I can imagine that The Emperor's New Groove is better on the nostalgia front than maybe Too Fast, Too Furious is.
I reckon my wife and I would quote something from The Emperor's New Groove maybe once a week.
That's a high amount.
Like, it is a very quotable film, very fun. I would definitely recommend, this has really been sidetracked now, but I do definitely recommend, Eamon, that you go back and watch The Emperor's New Groove, and just enjoy it, because it still holds up now, all these years after being made. As I said, it's super quotable. It's just a fun, feel good. It's probably one of my favorite Disney films.
Okay, yeah, will genuinely add it to my list, but I'm flat out trying to get through Suits at the moment, and I need to rewatch Interstellar badly. There's one part of my soul that really needs to consume that film again. So maybe once I've knocked those over.
I've only seen Interstellar once, and I was with it until the last half an hour, and then I was just like, okay, this has gone too far for me. I'm actually, one of my New Year's resolutions is I want to read a bit more. And Ella got me a book for Christmas, and I'm about halfway through, and it's kind of like a science fiction type book, which isn't my preferred genre of movie, but I'm really enjoying the book, and I've had thoughts of wanting to watch Interstellar as a result.
Can I ask what the book is? Because I was given a science fiction book and I want to read more, and I'm about to start it as well for Christmas.
Is this our calendar moment? Is this?
It could be. It could be depending on the book.
It is called Project Hail Mary.
Oh, okay. Mine's different.
Oh, I was really in my head. I was like, this is going to be an awesome moment. We're going to have the same book for Christmas. It's by Andy Weir, I think it's pronounced. He's the guy who wrote The Martian.
Okay.
And they're making a film out of Project Hail Mary starring Ryan Gosling. It's coming out next year, I think. So the first time in my life, I'm going to read a book before seeing the film, and I want to be that snob in the theater who's like, oh, the book's better.
Yeah, but this is perfect preparation for you.
Yeah. What's your book?
I thought it was called Jerd, but it's not, because I'm just Googling it now. It's on my bedside table. And it's not called Curd. It's called one of them. It's definitely not called... Is it called Curd? Hang on 1 second. Oh, no, it's called Curd. Is it called Curd? No.
You're telling the story, mate.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, I'm full... Yeah, look, mate, I'm going to have to either go and get the book right now and tell you, or tell you later. Because I haven't...
Isn't it nice to know? New year, same old tangentable.
Yes.
Homebrew. That's not even... yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah, we're there. But to bring it right back, I'll try and get this book at some point in this conversation. But to bring it right back, it is really good. Pull the lever, let it happen, and for God's sake, listen to the evidence that comes out on the other side of it. Because... we've seen what it does in the ACT and how beneficial that was. The other thing that I suppose probably people are probably a little bit scared to talk about because it almost sounds encouraging, and it's not. But the effect these things have is actually improving the quality of drugs generally as well. Because when you go and get your stuff tested, and if you get it tested and it's shithouse, you go back to the person who sold... Well, you don't go back, or you go back to them and say, you sold me shithouse stuff, and they lose business. And so then it incentivizes up the chain, the quality increasing, which in turn makes people safer. And if we are to accept that people are going to take drugs regardless, which I think many thousands of years of human history tells us, then that is a good thing. So it's good on multiple levels. It also provides a lot of information to health professionals and scientists as to what is actually getting around certain areas, which is another way they can help prevent harm when they see something bad starting to circulate. Whereas we're seeing this in southwestern and parts of Sydney as well at the moment, where we're having really, really strong opiates added to things like cocaine without people knowing. And there's been a number of overdose deaths like weekly as a result of it, which is horrible. Very similar to, I can't think of the name of it doesn't matter, but strong opiates that will kill you that people don't know. So when you put these things out in the open and allow information and sunlight to shine on them, then it keeps people safer, because there are multifaceted reasons why people can now analyze these things and then act accordingly. Also, it improves the quality. Also, people are more educated. It's a whole cycle, and it's this one move can help with that. Of course, we're not going to have these fixed sites in the street, in the city or wherever, and this 12-month trial like they do in the ACT. But it's a start, and it's getting us in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I'm still hearing Eamonn from the Aboriginal Groove yelling out "wrong lever" as you were talking then. But no, most definitely. I mean, there's so many upsides, and if it's safer from the production of the drug, then it's going to be safer at the consumption level as well. And I've also heard the theory, slightly unrelated, but let's just pretend alcohol doesn't exist. It's then invented tomorrow. Do you think alcohol would be legalized?
Ooh, that's a fascinating question.
I can't see it happening. But because it's already accepted in society, it's already so social, we accept it, right? And, you know, I'm not convinced that the leap from alcohol to drugs at a festival is that big of a leap where it should be, I don't know, criminalized or condemned or whatever.
Yes.
If that makes any sense. Like, I think, you know, alcohol, I think, has just as many potential harms and downsides as anything else. But because it's a social thing, right? You know, sure, over Christmas, you sat around, had some food, and you all had some alcoholic beverages because that was a social thing to do. And, you know, it's, you know, so I don't, and look, this is coming from someone, I've never taken a drug in my life outside of alcohol. So I'm not actually speaking from experience, but just ideologically in my head, the leap from one to the other doesn't feel as strong.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of people will be like, "Oh, I don't understand why people take drugs." And it's like, well, if you drink, it's for the same reason that you drink. You know, unless you drink for zero reason. But yeah, it's pretty much that. And I mean, everybody, or most people, have been exposed to some degree of alcoholism, whether it's close or far away in their life, and they've seen the damage that can do. Everybody would have seen a drunk person do something really stupid or make people feel unsafe or become aggressive, or, you know, and it's obviously it's more complex than just blaming the substance. But yeah, in terms of the destruction that something like alcohol, which is completely legal and normalized and encouraged, can wreak. It's a strange one. But yeah, I mean, when you consider all those factors and how ugly alcohol can get with people, perhaps it wouldn't be legalized if it were introduced tomorrow. It's a very interesting hypothetical.
Yeah, I as I said, I can't see it happening. If it were, you know, just invented tomorrow, someone's like, "Hey, I invented this new drink," but it makes you, you know, you get real slow and blurry, and then, you know, for some people it has this impact. They get really violent. Some people just get really sad and emotional. It makes you vomit and feel really sick if you have too much of it. You know, you almost, for some people, become a different person. They'll be like, "Well, no."
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
Anyway,
Not into
just
it.
a strange hypothetical that I did hear, and it just felt like, you know, it could potentially be an interesting discussion point off the back of what we're just talking about. But the other topic for the news that we're going to talk about comes, again, we can sort of connect it to something we were talking about a lot on the old radio days, which was historic venues and music venues being shut down or demolished. And this has a similar sort of, if we can stretch it, feel, you know, we've got a really good fresh bit of pizza dough and we're really stretching it to make it work, but
we're trying to break
analogy.
some kind of like suburb record with the size of this pizza, but we haven't bought enough dough, so we're just stretching it out.
And I didn't realize that's why I didn't buy enough dough, because I just didn't know.
And that is the perfect segue, because that is exactly the excuse
Your Honour.
Sydney developers have given for demolishing the childhood home of ACDC founders Angus and Malcolm Young. This is so bad. I mean, we're going to deliver this story with a smile, but it's honestly, it's so bad. It's so bad that this happened. I actually, and we'll get into it, I actually believe the developers in this one. And as we will explain, this looks to be a bit more of a complex failing to do with how developments work within local governments and the state government in New South Wales. But the short of it is that in 1965, the Young family moved into 4 Burleigh Street in Burwood, which is in Sydney's inner west, after they migrated from Scotland to Australia. Now, George Young went on to form the popular rock group The Easy Beats. His younger brothers, Malcolm and Angus, started ACDC in that home in 1973.
Whoa, hang on. Sorry, I'm going to really annoy the older demographic of our audience right now, but I didn't realize that the Easy Beats had an ACDC connect. I didn't realize that they were, you know, family.
I didn't either, to be honest with you, until I read this story. So
that's cool.
Yeah, it was a very talented family, which is crazy. But I mean, the Easy Beats connection further solidifies how important this house was. It was a very important site of Australian rock music history and Australian music history, period. I don't think there's many people who don't understand the significance of ACDC within Australia and general music history. But yeah, the house was purchased by Burwood Square Proprietary Limited in February of 2023 for $5.8 million, which, you know, that's just Sydney, crazy. But the property was then bulldozed in recent weeks alongside its neighbouring 2 Burleigh Street as part of plans for a $28.75 million residential development. Now, Burwood Square Proprietary Limited General Manager Leon Comita has issued an apology. He said that we regret that the previous long-term owner did not share this vital part of the property's background with us. Learning about this connection after our plans were already underway has shocked us. We are genuinely sorry for this oversight. On behalf of the team at Burwood Square, I want to convey our heartfelt regret. We now recognise how deeply this location resonates with the ACDC community and fans worldwide. We feel a strong responsibility to honour ACDC's legacy and to make amends to all the fans who hold this band in such high regard. While we cannot change the past, we are dedicated to celebrating the significant part of this story. So, is this complex? They're saying that the previous owner didn't tell them when they bought it. There's also this issue where the Burwood Council knew about it, like obviously knew about the house and its significance, and it had been listed on the National Trust of Historic Homes, but that is not like a binding kind of organization or anything like that. It was just listed there. And there's also these complexities that we'll get into in a little bit to do with like how developments work in New South Wales and planning laws and how quickly things can go from woe to go in this. So there was very little time for intervention for somebody to go, hey, hang on a minute. But it's just, it's very much, it's the most Sydney story I think ever in history, I think. But it's just such a horrible loss that didn't need to happen.
It is. I have, a few thoughts that immediately come to mind when hearing about this. Firstly, I'm with you. I actually do believe that the development company were unaware. I also find it so baffling that the council hadn't heritage listed the home, like taking it that step further where there were actually then restrictions around development and what you could and couldn't do with the property. Like there are some homes that are heritage listed, some on the Central Coast, where I look at and I go, you can't even see it from the street. Like why? Like what's the purpose for the heritage listing on that property?
Yeah.
And for this not to be heritage listed seems very baffling and a big cock up on the council's part, because as you said, they would have understood the history. They were aware. They probably celebrated that to other people who would come into the council, be like, look, it's the home of ACDC and the Easy Beats, yada, yada, yada. They were aware it should have been heritage listed. And then my third point, the third thing that comes to my mind when I hear this story is this would have never happened if it were Liverpool and the Beatles. This would have never happened if it was Taylor Swift's childhood home. You know what I mean? Like it just feels like there is always going to be some major disconnect in this country when it comes to the arts and the historical nature of this and the importance of that and the pavings that ACDC laid down for the next generation to walk across. And it's just I think you said it was a massive an opportunity lost from and that's how it feels. Like can you imagine if this was Liverpool and the Beatles and they just knocked down the home that John or Paul or Ringo or any of them grew up in? Like this was the house where they rehearsed and where they formed as a band. And, oh, by the way, it's now being a massive development. Like, it would never happen over there. And I'm not comparing AC/DC and the Beatles, but really in Australia, the AC/DC were almost like the Beatles of their generation. Like,
yeah,
what they went on to do when they were massive overseas, and like, I don't know. It's just very disheartening that a massive piece of Australian music history is demolished.
Because, like, Cam, neither you or I are huge Akadaka fans. Appreciate their music contribution. Definitely don't dislike them. But if I knew that house was in Burwood, where it was, and I found myself in Burwood, I walked past it, or I would make my way to it, that would be so cool. You'd be like, wow, that's the house where AC/DC was formed. Like, what a cool piece of history to be standing before. You don't have, so you can only imagine how the hardcore AC/DC fans are feeling, the lifelong fans are feeling about this. But you're so right. It's just in so many other countries, there's this real clear appreciation connection, and there's this kind of, which I think we are kind of slowly getting towards a point where it's not something that can be lumped into an infrastructure department, as we've seen in the past, where it's like, art and culture kind of core to the operation of a society and a government, and it's kind of central to decisions. But it is so reflective of where we are at, where we're coming from, and where we're still clearly in, that this could even happen in the first place, because it wouldn't even be a possibility, as you said, for other bands in other countries of equal significance. But to the developer thing as well, like, they're in it to make money, and they owned that house, and they were already building a development all around it. And so part of why I just don't think that they knew is because they could have made a whole lot of money off keeping that house and continuing with their developments and modifying their plans around it and having it as an attraction as well. I think there was too much there that they knocked down, that's opportunity lost purely from a financial perspective for them, but also from a huge cultural perspective from everybody else in the country.
Even like furthermore to that, like, if you are the council or you are a private developer or business savvy person, why not? It doesn't have to be a functional home that you just walk past and go, oh, that's where the Young brothers grew up. No, you can actually form it into you can make it a museum, you can make it an attraction, you can turn it into a recording studio, you can, have people walk through and section off and be like, oh, look, this is, the bedroom, or this is the garage where they, started playing for the first time when they first imagined AC/DC, and actually turn it into a big, important cultural thing for the music industry. Similar, I don't know if this is the right comparison to make, but, there's Anne Frank's house in Amsterdam. That's a historical place because of the historical significance of it. But they didn't just demolish it afterwards. They've turned it into a museum. They've turned it into awareness for the history of everything that happened. We could do a similar thing about the history of AC/DC and music culture in Australia at that time, and then use that to drive culture in this country and further our appreciation for homegrown talent, because especially in a digital TikTok age, it feels like more and more what's happening in Australia is forgotten about, and we just want to know what the next big viral thing to come out of America is, or whatever the internet says is trending. But to actually, have that tangible bit of history in this, I don't know. It really frustrates me. But, like I said, I have no blame attached to the development company. My whole beef really is with the government for not heritage listing it and doing something a bit better.
Yeah. And had they not, even if they knew about it and they did it, again, developers are going to do what developers are going to do. But this is why we have heritage laws in place. And there's buildings that are heritage listed because of a particular size tile that's used, in that house.
A certain type of
get
tree.
anymore, which is, not saying it's not legitimate, but what I'm saying is, if that can be a reason, then the fact that one of the country's most significant bands was formed in those walls should be too. And Burwood like literally last year, Burwood Council commemorated the address by commissioning a nearby mural, which is the size of a building, and it's got the two young brothers as children and guitars, and it's literally on 12 Burley Street, sorry, so literally a few seconds walk up the road. So they were acutely aware of what was there, and yet somehow they were not able as a council to act, and there's a good explainer on the ABC if you want to go into it, look into it a little bit more. But basically, what it comes down to is something called complying development. And what happened was the development company was able to engage a private certifier to come and say, yep, all good, this is good to be demolished. And it did comply with whatever is required to demolish the building. They issued a complying development certificate, which required only 2 days' notice to the council before demolition works commenced, and that's pretty much how it happened. This is a system that was introduced 25 years ago for developments that meet certain requirements. It was designed to address issues and concerns around the speed and efficiency of planning and development to getting these things over the line. There's no particular sort of decision making involved apart from testifying that something meets the rules, which is what a University of Sydney planning professor, Nicole Gurran, has said. That's why the state government is happy to allow private certifiers to essentially tick off on it, she said. So yeah, it's just so Sydney, so New South Wales. Basically, a system designed to reduce red tape, increase the efficiency of developments means that we don't have these oversights. But again, I mean, it was on the National Trust of Significant Buildings. That just doesn't have any binding authority over what is done with a building. The fact that it didn't get some kind of heritage listing, some kind of protection, is ridiculous, and it does come back down onto the state government and the council.
Absolutely, because complied development certificates are quite commonplace. It's a way to, as opposed to doing a costly and lengthy development application through council, you, as you mentioned, go through a private certifier and they sign off on everything without council necessarily having to be directly involved in approving everything, because your private certifiers are aware of everything and they just lodge it through and say with council, yep, this is what's happening, all good. But a heritage listing or some other form of a way of blocking that demolition could have been made. And yeah, it's, look, you can look at it and say it's just a house, but which it is. That is true. It is a house that is being demolished for development, and that is quite common, particularly, what's happening more and more because we need more housing. I understand that. But when there is such cultural significance to the nation in that home, it feels like you could and should be doing more than a plaque and mural 4 doors down. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It leaves me a little bit sad, and just, as you said, it feels like it is so Sydney.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, even in this same ABC piece, which I would again encourage people to look at, they said a decade ago, independent heritage specialist City Plan Heritage was proactively engaged by Burwood Council to assess the property, who did not recommend the site be listed as it was not considered to be significant enough historically, quote. Which I don't understand how that conclusion is arrived at based on what we've just discussed, but yeah, it's just one of those things like that's gone forever. We'll never get that back. It's gone. And yeah, I mean, it's a material thing, and the music isn't material, of course, but this is what we kind of bang on about in different ways and saying it differently, and there's different examples all the time, but this is how culture is born and preserved and carried through generations. This is how we know who we are and where we come from, and now there's going to be some probably slick-looking development there, but it's going to mean nothing where we could have had a really significant Australian site there, and it just seems like very avoidable.
Yeah, big time. But on that very fun note, unless there's anything else you wanted to add to this, that'll probably do us for this music news. Something, now live production meeting right at the end of this episode. There was, I think you may have even hinted at it at the start, but we haven't actually openly discussed it. So let me try and be as cryptic as possible. I think we're on the same page here, but you came over to my place last week. We discussed launching something to help with fun. No, that's not really too cryptic. But you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
Do we want to announce that now? Do we think that by the time this comes out in a few days' time, we'll have done something to have announced / launched said thing? Or do you want to hold off for another week or two?
I actually want to hold off, reason being because we're at the end of the podcast now, and our metrics tell us that most people have stopped listening roughly around this point.
If you're still listening right now, maybe this is perfect for you because you're a big supporter of Homebrewed, and this is something that you would be interested in potentially. If you have endured through that and you are still listening now, I feel like even if we don't launch it now, or by the time this is up, you at least deserve to hear about it.
Well, that's a good middle ground. Something a bit non-committal for us because we don't know how organised we'll be able to be between now and when this comes out.
Do you want to do the honours?
Yeah, it rhymes with Matreon. And we're going to launch it. We're launching a Patreon for the work that we do in the hope that we can not make profit, but cover some of the expenses that producing all the things we do incurs. So we, just for context, we pay subscriptions to Adobe, to Google, to Wix. We pay for all of our equipment. There's a lot of, probably thousands over a 12-month period of expenses that go into actually making this and doing it in the way that we do and presenting it in the way that we do and having the website and playing the role that we want to play. So we are going to be launching a Patreon in the hope of maybe covering some of those costs. Now, of course, we don't expect to be, we know we're not going to make money even if everyone that listens started paying us. But yeah, if everyone that listened did start paying us, we would be able to cover a lot of the costs of doing this. So more will be revealed, but there's going to be tiers. It's not a high amount of money that we're requesting from people monthly. It's completely voluntary. We're not going to lock anything up. It's all going to be the same, but there will be little extra fun bits for you if you do decide to come on as a paid patron, I believe they're called.
Yeah, so you can join our Patreon whenever we do decide to officially launch it and become available. And we're not going to take your money and then run to the bank and go, oh, look how rich we are, because we don't actually envisage that we'll make any money off this. It is literally, as Eamonn said, just to try and help cover some costs because we've been doing this, or at least a form of this, for over 7 years. We haven't made a cent from any of the radio or podcasting that we've been doing. We love doing it, which is why we've continued to do it for so long. But as everyone's wallets are getting a little bit thinner and tighter and costs are getting a little bit harder to, things are harder to pay for. And as we're looking to up production, like we're now doing full video podcasts and that sort of stuff as well, sort of the different elements and costs involved with doing, the production of the podcasts, it is becoming a little bit more expensive to continue at, but we want to give this our all, we want to make the production as best as we can. We don't really want to half-ass it and just put it up, even though it might sound like that's what we're doing. We are actually putting quite a bit of thought and care into the way we present this podcast and everything around it. So any contributions are absolutely welcomed and completely voluntary. There is no obligation to do so. But if you would like to help out, there will be, if it is launched, there will be a link in the show notes for this podcast, likely on our Instagram bio as well. So you can go there and check it out. We will be doing a couple of, exclusive things for people who do subscribe to our Patreon. One of the tiers is you can ask a guest a question. So we'll be putting in there if we'll be chatting to so-and-so. Would you like to ask them a question? And, that's just something that we can't offer too much because some of these podcasts are quite impromptu, so we can't really offer early access. We can't really offer too much exclusive content, but we are going to try and make it worthwhile outside of if you do genuinely just want to help support us.
Yeah, and importantly, we won't be locking up any of our existing content or anything. Nothing, if you choose not to, will change. So you don't have to worry about that. But yeah, of course, anything would be appreciated. But we also understand it's tough times. So if you can't, that's all good too. So if you're loaded, bloody send it through, mate. Let's go. 1,000 a month. Come on. Thank you. No, not at all. But yeah, that's the gist. Keep an eye on our socials for when we do, whenever that is, properly launch it. You'll be able to find links to it. You better see
do you know what would be
about
fun?
It. And what would be fun?
Maybe I'll just clip up this section of the podcast, and that can be our announcement video.
Well, look, that's pretty easy way to do it because that means you've already done it.
Exactly. So this is our official announcement. Hello, social media.
Sweet as. All right. Thanks. Yeah. Anyway, there's nothing more to be said. We've covered all bases. We understand if you can't. We'd appreciate it if you could. The details will be findable on our social media pages. Homebrewed Media is where you can find us if you're not already there.
And until the next music news rambling in a couple of weeks' time, there'll be. Our interviews will be continuing on a Monday as of this coming Monday. We've got, really cool, massive Australian artists to start with. So keep your eyes peeled for that.
Yes. And then some fantastic local artists coming straight hot on their heels. So, keep your eyes and ears peeled. Subscribe on wherever you listen to podcasts, please. Spotify, wherever that is. Apple Podcast.
Or YouTube if you watch it.
Yeah, the numbers help. Follow us on the socials if you don't already. Tell people in person about it. That's also just tell them if you think someone likes it, you're talking about podcasting, spread the love. We're not asking you to do letterbox drops for us, but all those things are great.
Well, you can do that too. If you want to, go to a local printing company, print out a bunch of DLs and drop them in people's letterboxes and let people know. But no, honestly, the best way is to follow the podcast, like it, leave us a good rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever. That genuinely will help a lot. If you do want to help but you can't contribute to the Patreon, that is completely understandable. The best way and a free way to do it is, liking and all the good ratings and leave comments on Spotify.
Yes, indeed.
Too Fast, Too Furious, or The Emperor's New Groove? I feel like I know what the answers are going to be.
Yes.
Sorry, Eamonn.
Yeah, I know. I think you're right. All right. Well, until next time, adios.
See ya. I was going to try and tie an Emperor's New Groove ending, but I couldn't.
Oh, some kind of line?
Yeah, but nothing immediately came to me.